Something unusual is unfolding in Burkina Faso, and it begins with information rather than weapons or resources. For decades, the global narrative surrounding many African countries has been shaped largely by outside media, where crises dominate headlines while local progress and internal transformation often receive far less attention. So what happens when a country decides to tell its own story to the world, and what role does Ibrahim Traoré play in this attempt to reshape how Burkina Faso is understood globally? The answer may change more than people expect. You are about to hear a story that goes far beyond a simple announcement about a website or a government communication project. What is unfolding in Burkina Faso touches a deeper issue that affects how countries are seen, how information travels across the world, and how public perception is shaped long before most people ever look closely at the facts. You will understand how information itself can influence global perception. And this is not just another news update. If someone only follows the surface of international headlines, the situation may appear simple. News about Burkina Faso often focuses on security concerns, political tensions, or instability. Those elements exist, but they do not tell the entire story. When information travels across continents through large media networks, algorithms, and digital platforms, certain narratives gain more visibility while others quietly disappear. That imbalance is precisely the issue that has become part of the debate surrounding Burkina Faso's new information initiative under Ibrahim Traoré. Supporters argue that the country has the right to present verified information about its own development, policies, and social changes. They believe citizens should have direct access to official updates instead of relying on rumors or fragmented reports. But the stakes go beyond national communication. In a world where search engines, artificial intelligence systems, and global media outlets gather data from the internet, the information available online becomes the foundations are perceived. If inaccurate or incomplete information dominates the digital space, then that perception can shape international opinion, economic confidence, and diplomatic attitudes. That is why some observers see this initiative as more than a communication platform. They see it as part of a broader attempt to redefine how Burkina Faso presents itself in the digital age, particularly under the leadership of Ibrahim Traoré. Yet to understand why this move is attracting attention, it is important to step back and look at how the situation began and why the issue of narrative control became so significant in the first place. In reality, the announcement of a national information platform may appear simple at first glance, but it reflects a deeper shift in how governments think about communication and influence in the digital era. One detail often overlooked is that today, the global information ecosystem is no longer controlled only by traditional television networks or newspapers. Search engines, online databases, and artificial intelligence systems increasingly determine what information people encounter first when they look up a country. A single factor highlights why this matters. In recent years, billions of online searches about countries, leaders, and global events have been processed through digital platforms, and AI-based tools gather their knowledge directly from publicly available internet content. That means whatever information dominates the internet effectively becomes the version of reality that many people see first. This is the context in which the new information platform in Burkina Faso was introduced under the leadership of Ibrahim Traoré. The project is designed to function as a centralized digital source where verified updates about the country can be shared. Agriculture, infrastructure development, security updates, cultural initiatives, and government programs. Instead of fragmented announcements appearing across scattered channels, the platform aims to gather information into one organized hub. The idea did not appear suddenly. For years, discussions about misinformation and incomplete narratives surrounding African countries have circulated among journalists, analysts, and policymakers. Some argue that international media often highlight crises while paying less attention to long-term development or local initiatives. Others respond that the real issue is not bias, but simply the global demand for dramatic news stories. Within this debate, Burkina Faso's initiative represents a practical response. If information about a country is inconsistent or misunderstood, then building a clear, accessible source of data may help clarify the situation. First, it is meant for citizens inside the country. When reliable information is easily available, people do not have to rely on rumors or fragmented social media posts. Access to direct communication from public institutions can improve understanding of national programs and policies. Second, the platform also targets international readers. Europe, the Americas, or Asia can access the same information and see updates about events taking place across Burkina Faso. This could reduce misunderstandings that sometimes arise when outside observers rely only on limited sources. At the center of these developments stands Ibrahim Traore, whose leadership has been closely associated with discussions about sovereignty, national independence, and strategic communication. For supporters, the launch of this platform symbolizes a step toward informational autonomy. It raises questions about how governments should balance narrative control with openness and independent journalism. The moment the platform was announced, reactions quickly spread through online communities and political discussions. Some saw it as a bold experiment in digital communication. Others viewed it cautiously, wondering whether a government-led platform can truly remain neutral while presenting official perspectives. To understand why these reactions emerged so quickly, it is necessary to examine how the leadership behind the initiative approached the issue and what early signals suggested about its intended impact. The initiative did not appear in isolation. It emerged in a political environment where communication, perception, and public trust have become increasingly central to governance. In this context, Ibrahim Traore has often been presented by supporters as a leader determined to reshape how Burkina Faso interacts with both its citizens and the wider world. Observers note that his leadership style frequently emphasizes sovereignty, national dignity, and independence from external narratives. The creation of a centralized information platform, therefore, fits into a broader pattern. It signals an attempt to ensure that official information about the country can be accessed directly rather than filtered through multiple outside interpretations. One early example illustrates the reasoning behind the move. Government officials explained that citizens should not have to rely on scattered rumors circulating across social media to understand what is happening in their own country. Instead, the platform aims to serve as a single location where verified updates from various ministries can be published in a clear and organized way. Another important feature is accessibility. The system is designed to function on both smartphones and computers, making it easier for citizens across different regions to access information. In addition, the platform includes content in local languages alongside international languages. This approach reflects the idea that information should reach both domestic audiences and readers abroad who want to understand developments in Burkina Faso. These choices reveal an underlying goal: strengthening the connection between government communication and public awareness. When people can easily see what projects are underway or what policies are being implemented, they may feel more informed about national developments. At the same time, analysts emphasize that communication alone does not automatically create trust. A platform must consistently provide accurate information, remain transparent, and avoid becoming a tool for political messaging. Whether this initiative achieves that balance will likely determine how it is perceived over time. Yet from the perspective of Ibrahim Traore and his supporters, the launch represents an early step toward reclaiming informational space in a rapidly evolving digital environment. The next stage of the story begins when the idea moves from concept to action and the sequence of events that followed. At first, the change was subtle. A platform appeared, a few announcements followed, but then the sequence of events began to unfold. The idea surfaced publicly. Discussions intensified, ministries started coordinating, information streams began to shift. Under the leadership of Ibrahim Traore, the project moved from concept to implementation. The government announced the launch of a centralized information platform known as Burkina Marche. The goal was clear: create a place where verified facts about the country could be shared directly, without distortion or confusion. The trigger moment came when officials openly acknowledged a growing problem. For years, information about Burkina Faso had often been scattered across social media, foreign news outlets, and unofficial sources. Some reports were accurate, others incomplete, and some clearly misleading. In response, authorities decided the country needed a structured way to present its own information. The announcement quickly drew attention. Within hours, discussions appeared online. Supporters welcomed the move as a step toward transparency. They argued that citizens deserve direct access to updates about national programs, infrastructure projects, and social initiatives. If information is centralized and verified, rumors lose their power. But the conversation did not stop there. Observers outside the country also began asking questions. Could a government-run platform truly remain neutral? Would it highlight achievements while overlooking problems? Or could it genuinely function as a reliable source of factual updates? As these debates spread, the timeline accelerated. Government departments were instructed to contribute updates. Reports about health, agriculture, education, and infrastructure were expected to appear in an organized format. Technical teams from the Ministry of Digital Transition worked on the platform's functionality, while communication teams focused on presenting information clearly. The goal was to build something larger than a website. Officials described it as a national information hub. And this is where the story becomes more complex. Once a country begins actively shaping its own narrative online, the consequences extend far beyond a single platform. It travels through search engines, social networks, and artificial intelligence systems that constantly scan the internet. In that sense, the launch of Burkina Faso represents not only a domestic communication project, but also an entry into the global contest over digital narratives. Under Ibrahim Traore, Burkina Faso is attempting to ensure that when people search for information about the country, they encounter a version of reality grounded in official data and documented developments rather than fragments of speculation. Yet the aftershocks of this decision continue to unfold, because the real question is not simply whether a platform exists, but whether it can actually reshape perception both inside and outside the country. When observers step back and examine the situation more carefully, a pattern begins to appear. The launch of an information platform may seem like a small administrative decision, yet the numbers behind global digital information reveal why the issue matters far more than it first appears. In the past, most people learned about foreign countries through television reports or newspaper coverage. Today the situation is different. Billions of searches are conducted on the internet every day, and a large portion of those searches now rely on search engines, databases, and increasingly on artificial intelligence systems that gather information directly from online sources. This is where the baseline of the issue becomes clear. For many countries, including Burkina Faso, the majority of publicly available online information has historically been produced outside the country itself. Reports written by foreign news organizations, research institutions, and international agencies often dominate the digital landscape. As a result, these external sources shape the first impression many people receive when they search for information about the country. The introduction of the Burkina Faso platform attempts to change that balance. Instead of allowing scattered reports to define the narrative, the platform aims to provide structured updates drawn directly from government, ministries, and national institutions. In simple terms, the baseline situation involved fragmented information, while the new approach introduces a centralized source designed to present verified updates. A second indicator highlights how quickly the information environment has evolved. In recent years, new AI tools such as ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude have become widely used for answering questions and summarizing global topics. These systems gather knowledge from publicly available internet content. Those same distortions can be reproduced by automated systems. This technological shift is one of the reasons officials in Burkina Faso decided to act now. By publishing structured information online, the government hopes that digital platforms and AI systems will eventually access more balanced data about the country. The strategy is simple: if accurate information exists in the digital ecosystem, it has a better chance of influencing global understanding. A third factor focuses on the human dimension. For citizens inside Burkina Faso, access to reliable updates can reduce dependence on rumors that spread rapidly through social media. When people can easily verify information about infrastructure projects, education initiatives, or public programs, public understanding may become more grounded in documented facts rather than speculation. Taken together, these three elements, global search behavior, the rise of AI information systems, and the need for domestic transparency explain why the creation of a national information platform has drawn attention. What may appear as a small communication project actually sits at the intersection of technology, perception, and national identity. Burkina Faso is experimenting with a new way of participating in the global information space. But this experiment also raises important questions. Not everyone agrees that a government-led platform is the ideal solution, and some critics believe the issue deserves careful debate. Some observers support the initiative enthusiastically, while others approach it with caution. And government communication, differing perspectives are not unusual. In fact, they often help clarify what is really at stake. One argument raised by supporters is straightforward. They say every country has the right to present verified information about its own policies, programs, and development. If a nation depends entirely on outside reporting to define its image, then important local realities may be overlooked. From this point of view, the creation of a centralized information platform in Burkina Faso under Ibrahim Traore is seen as a logical step toward informational independence. Supporters also point out that many governments around the world maintain official portals that publish data, policy updates, and national statistics. Burkina Faso is simply doing what other states have done for years, creating a structured place where citizens and international audiences can find reliable updates. However, critics raise a different concern. They argue that when governments control the main platform presenting national information, there is always a risk that negative developments might receive less attention than positive ones. Even if the intention is transparency, the structure itself can influence which stories are highlighted and which remain in the background. Another criticism focuses on credibility. Information is oft untrusted, most when it comes from a variety of independent sources rather than a single official channel. Critics therefore suggest that while a national platform may provide useful updates, it should exist alongside independent journalism, research institutions, and open public debate. These arguments highlight a deeper point. The issue is not simply whether the platform exists, but how it will function over time. Will it remain a transparent source of factual information, or will it gradually become more selective in the stories it shares? When both perspectives are placed side by side, the debate becomes clearer. Supporters emphasize sovereignty and narrative control, while critics emphasize pluralism and independent verification. Between these two views lies the central challenge facing initiatives like the one introduced under Ibrahim Traore. Finding a balance between telling a nation's own story and maintaining the openness that builds long-term credibility. Understanding that balance becomes even more important when a new development suddenly changes the direction of the conversation. And then something changed. The launch of the platform began to reveal a deeper purpose. What initially looked like a communication tool started to look more like a strategic shift in how Burkina Faso participates in the global information environment. Instead of reacting to narratives produced elsewhere, the country was attempting to create a structured stream of information that could circulate across digital networks on its own terms. This shift became clearer as officials explained how the platform would function. Every ministry was encouraged to contribute updates about its work, infrastructure projects, agricultural programs, health initiatives, education reforms, and security developments were expected to appear in one organized space. Rather than scattered announcements appearing across unrelated websites, the information would be collected and documented in a centralized format. Under the leadership of Ibrahim Traore, this approach reflects a broader idea that some analysts describe as narrative sovereignty. The concept is simple: a country should not depend entirely on external actors to define how it is perceived. By publishing its own verified data, images, and reports, a nation can participate more actively in shaping global understanding of its situation. Another aspect of the platform highlights the international dimension of the project. The system includes multiple languages, making it accessible not only to citizens inside Burkina Faso but also to readers abroad. The Americas or Asia can access the same updates that local citizens see. This feature suggests that the platform is designed to influence both domestic and global audiences simultaneously. It provides direct access to government communication. For international readers, it offers a structured source of information that may challenge or complement narratives found elsewhere. Yet the deeper significance lies in timing. The digital world is evolving rapidly. Artificial intelligence systems, search engines, and automated data platforms continuously scan online content to generate summaries, answers, and analysis. In such an environment, the availability of structured information can influence how entire countries are represented in digital knowledge systems. That realization explains why the creation of Burkina Faso has attracted attention beyond Burkina Faso itself. Observers see it not merely as a national communication project but as part of a larger shift in how states engage with the digital information ecosystem. Once that perspective becomes clear, the next question naturally follows. If a country succeeds in shaping its own narrative online, what real-world consequences might follow? When the conversation moves beyond the announcement itself, the real impact begins to appear. A digital platform may exist online, but its consequences extend into institutions, markets, communities, and even regional relationships. For governments, the creation of a centralized information source introduces both opportunity and responsibility. If official updates are regularly published, policymakers gain a tool to communicate programs, clarify policies, and address public concerns more directly. The platform launched during the leadership of Ibrahim Traore could allow ministries to present updates about infrastructure development, agricultural initiatives, or public services without depending solely on outside reporting. This visibility also increases pressure on institutions to maintain accuracy and transparency, because any inconsistency would quickly attract scrutiny. Businesses also watch developments like this carefully. Trade partners and entrepreneurs often rely on publicly available information when evaluating economic opportunities. When reliable data about infrastructure projects, agricultural output, or development initiatives becomes easier to access, it can influence how companies perceive risk and potential in a country. In that sense, the availability of structured information can quietly shape economic confidence. For ordinary citizens, the impact can feel more immediate. When people have direct access to verified updates about their country, they are less likely to depend entirely on rumors circulating through social media. Information about new roads, farming programs, education projects, or healthcare initiatives becomes easier to confirm. That does not eliminate disagreement or criticism, but it changes the starting point of public discussion from speculation to documented information. The regional dimension is also significant. Countries across West Africa are observing how Burkina Faso manages this experiment in digital communication. If the platform succeeds in improving transparency and international understanding, other governments in the region may consider similar approaches. Information strategies could gradually become part of broader discussions about sovereignty and development. This is where the broader picture emerges. The launch of a national information platform is not only about communication, it is about influence. Information shapes perception, perception shapes policy discussions, and policy discussions influence how countries cooperate with one another. Under Ibrahim Traore, Burkina Faso is testing whether a structured digital presence can reshape how the country is understood both internally and internationally. Whether that experiment succeeds will depend not only on the technology behind the platform, but also on the consistency and credibility of the information it provides. As the story continues to unfold, analysts have begun to imagine several possible paths the future might take. When analysts attempt to understand where developments might lead, they often imagine several possible paths rather than predicting a single outcome. The future of Burkina Faso's information strategy, introduced during the leadership of Ibrahim Traore, could follow different trajectories depending on how the platform evolves and how both citizens and international observers respond. One scenario reflects what many consider the most likely outcome. The platform gradually becomes a regular source of updates about government projects, national policies, and social programs. Citizens begin to consult it alongside other news sources. While international readers occasionally reference it when searching for information about Burkina Faso, the result would not dramatically transform global perception overnight, but it could slowly improve the availability of direct information about the country. Another possibility is more optimistic. If the platform consistently publishes accurate data, transparent updates, and diverse information from across the country, it could become a trusted reference point for journalists, researchers, and international observers. Over time, this credibility could strengthen Burkina Faso's digital presence and provide a clearer picture of developments within the country. In that case, the initiative associated with Ibrahim Traore might be remembered as an early step toward stronger informational independence in the digital age. However, there is also a more cautious scenario that analysts sometimes mention. If the platform becomes too selective in the information it presents, or if audiences perceive it primarily as a promotional tool, its credibility could weaken. People might return to relying mainly on external sources or independent media to interpret events in Burkina Faso. The platform would still exist, but its influence on global perception would remain limited. These different scenarios illustrate an important reality. The success of an information initiative does not depend only on launching a platform. It depends on the long-term consistency of the information shared, the transparency of institutions involved, and the willingness of audiences to engage with the material. For Ibrahim Traore and the institutions supporting this project, the challenge is therefore not only technological but also institutional. The credibility of the platform will grow slowly, through repeated demonstrations of accuracy and openness. While the future cannot be predicted with certainty, one thing is clear: the decision to build a national information platform has already started a wider conversation about how countries present themselves in a digital world. After exploring the broader implications and possible futures, one final question becomes important: what does all of this mean for the people who are actually watching this story unfold? For viewers who actively follow global affairs, initiatives like the one introduced in Burkina Faso under Ibrahim Traore offer an opportunity to observe how information itself is becoming a strategic tool. Understanding how digital narratives are formed can help people interpret international news more carefully. Instead of accepting a single perspective, informed viewers often compare multiple sources, look for documented data, and pay attention to how different actors frame the same events. Another group of viewers may not follow political developments closely, yet they still encounter their effects indirectly. International cooperation, and even cultural perceptions between societies. When narratives about a country shift, those changes can shape tourism, investment, and diplomatic relationships that eventually affect everyday life. There are also people who might feel distant from these discussions, assuming that debates about media narratives or national communication strategies have little to do with them. Yet the reality is that information ecosystems influence nearly everyone. The stories that circulate globally affect how countries understand each other and how citizens interpret events beyond their borders. In that sense, paying attention to how information is produced and shared becomes a form of awareness. When viewers understand the mechanisms behind digital narratives, they are less likely to be misled by incomplete or distorted accounts. For anyone watching this story develop, the most useful approach may simply be curiosity combined with critical thinking. Observing how the platform evolves, how audiences respond, and how international coverage reacts will reveal whether this initiative truly changes the information landscape. Regardless of one's position in the debate, understanding the story means recognizing that information itself has become a central part of global dynamics in the digital age. After examining the challenges, the debates, and the possible futures, attention eventually turns to a more practical question. If information has become such an important part of national strategy, what kind of steps could help initiatives like this succeed over time? The first step involves institutional responsibility. When a government launches a platform designed to provide verified updates, the most important requirement is consistency. Ministries, public agencies, And national institutions must regularly publish clear and documented information about their activities. If updates appear only occasionally or remain incomplete, public confidence can fade quickly. Maintaining that steady flow of transparent information will be essential if the platform introduced during the leadership of Ibrahim Traore is to gain credibility. The second step concerns collaboration with professional communicators and information specialists. Journalists, researchers, and data analysts play a crucial role in interpreting and verifying information. By encouraging cooperation between official institutions and independent expertise, the platform could develop into a more comprehensive source of knowledge rather than a purely administrative bulletin. The third step focuses on citizens themselves. Access to reliable information is valuable only when people actively engage with it. Communities can participate by verifying what they read, avoiding the spread of rumors, and contributing to a culture where accurate information is valued. In a digital environment where misinformation travels rapidly, public awareness becomes part of the solution. A fourth dimension may also emerge through regional cooperation, if similar initiatives appear in other countries. Governments across West Africa could exchange experience and technical knowledge about managing digital information systems. Such cooperation could strengthen the overall reliability of information circulating across the region. Taken together, these steps form a practical roadmap. Consistent updates from institutions, collaboration with professionals, active engagement from citizens, and regional exchange of experience. Even the most carefully designed plan will only matter if it is actually implemented. In the long run, credibility grows not from announcements but from actions repeated over time. At the beginning of this story, the focus was a simple but powerful question: who tells the story of a nation? That question has followed us through every stage of the discussion. Earlier we saw how the creation of a centralized information platform in Burkina Faso represents an attempt to reshape how the country communicates with both its citizens and the outside world. The initiative emerged during the leadership of Ibrahim Traore at a moment when digital technology, global media, and artificial intelligence are transforming how information travels across borders. Along the way, we explored the motivations behind the project, the debates it has generated, and the broader context of global information systems. Supporters see the platform as a step toward informational sovereignty, allowing Burkina Faso to present verified facts about its own development and policies. Remind us that credibility depends on openness, transparency, and the presence of multiple independent voices. This journey reveals something deeper than a single platform or a single country. It highlights how narratives influence perception, and how perception influences relationships between societies. When information changes, understanding can change as well. In the case of Burkina Faso, the leadership of Ibrahim Traore has placed the issue of national narrative at the center of a wider conversation about sovereignty in the digital age. Whether this experiment ultimately succeeds will depend on the consistency of the information shared and the trust it builds over time. One idea remains clear after examining the story from beginning to end. Control of information is no longer just about media. It is about identity, perception, and the future. Sometimes the power to tell a story can shape how the world listens. As this discussion concludes, it is worth pausing for a moment and reflecting on what this story really represents. What began as a conversation about a digital platform gradually revealed a much larger theme: the growing importance of information in shaping how nations are understood in the modern world. Throughout this journey, we have explored how Burkina Faso launched a centralized information platform intended to share verified updates about the country. The initiative appeared during the leadership of Ibrahim Traore, at a time when global communication is increasingly shaped by search engines, digital databases, and artificial intelligence systems that gather knowledge from the internet. For some observers, the project represents a step toward informational independence. They see it as an effort by Burkina Faso to ensure that its own voice becomes part of the global conversation about the country. The initiative raises questions about how governments balance narrative control with transparency and independent reporting. Yet beyond the debate, one idea continues to resonate. In a digital world where information spreads across borders instantly, The ability to present accurate and accessible knowledge about a nation can influence how that nation is perceived internationally. If this conversation adds something meaningful to the way people understand global events, it can be shared with others who might also want to explore these ideas. Discussions like this often grow stronger when more voices join the exchange. The most interesting question to leave open is this: as more countries begin to shape their own digital narratives, how will the global information landscape change in the years ahead?